the mistake that I won't ever make again is I always need to know where my bodies are buried in my business. And if there is something that just seems to be going really, really well, and that seems unusual that it's going really well, well, it's probably because there's bodies buried and I don't know about them. Welcome to the Ryan Rice Show, where we talk about what we learned yesterday that we can apply today so that we can be better tomorrow. I hope you enjoy and subscribe. Know where the bodies are buried. I'm going to tell you a story that happened in my business this week, but I think this could even apply to you if you're an employee or maybe even in your personal life. I still think you would get some good takeaways from this. But this happened in my business this week, and so I'm going to talk about it from that frame. If there's something going on in your business that seems to be going really well, all the stars just seem to be aligning, everything is going great, then you're probably just not involved enough. And you don't know where the bodies are buried. And it's very important to know where the bodies are buried because there's always bodies buried, I've found. And I think the only time this is not the case is probably when you have an exceptionally high performer and you have confirmed that this person is very, very good at their job. And then I think the logic would make sense that if things are going great, it's because you have someone in that seat who is excellent. But if that is not the case, there is probably always something a little bit deeper if everything seems to be going great. I bought a house in December of last year, and when I bought this house, the deal had really, really good potential. This was going to be a house that I purchased, and very shortly after I purchased, I was just going to get it back on the market. So I was going to do some very minor stuff to it, maybe clean it, just throw it on the market, maybe a little bit more. But it was going to be what I would like to call a classic wholesale, which means I really don't do much renovation. Well, this was in a new market for me. This is the first house that I bought in this market. Market was about 3 hours from my house. And it just so happened that I have a good friend who lives in this area and who has gotten into investment real estate and was at a meetup recently. And I just so happened to be talking about what he was doing with real estate investing. And I told him I had this house. And so I needed a good agent in that area. And he recently met someone that was at this meetup, and he sent me his contact info. So I called the person, and man, at the time I thought I hit a landmine. At the time I thought I hit a gold mine, rather, not a landmine. But when I talked to this agent on the phone, he's an agent that flips a bunch of houses, does a ton of volume in this area, very knowledgeable, has been in the industry for 2+ decades. And so it just seemed like a perfect fit, right? And so I got him involved, and I had him walk the house. And because of his experience, I probably wasn't as involved as I would have normally been if it was an agent who seemed to not have as much experience. So I took a little bit more of a back seat, especially in the beginning and even throughout a good part of the process. And so he went to the house and kind of was giving me his opinion. We talked about numbers if I didn't do much work to it. We talked about numbers if I did some additional work to it. And essentially what he told me is like, hey, if you do this, this, and this, I think you could get X for the property. And this was for sure going to be a slam dunk 6-figure deal for me. And so I was like, well, that makes a ton of sense. And then I needed contractors, right? And he was like, well, this is, I flip anywhere from 5 to 10 houses a year. And so I got a ton of people that I know. And I mean, he was firing up contractors left and right, right? He introduced me to probably 6 or 7 contractors right from the bat. I talked to all of them. All of them seemed relatively experienced. I was like, wow, this is great. So I thought I had hit a really, really good experienced agent. He had a ton of contractor connections. This was really aligning well. And so he walked the house and, sent me a ton of media, a ton of videos, and he essentially helped me come up with a scope of work for the contractors based on what he thought the house would sell for if we did this scope of work. And so he does the scope of work. We come up with a list of things that we're going to do. We hire like 3 or 4 different contractors, and they're all doing kind of different things. So at this point, he's essentially GCing this job himself because he's just has a whole bunch of people in his network. And I was like, wow, this is great. So we do all this work and we get it thrown on the market. And we throw it on the market and we get a little bit of visibility. We get some showings at first, but right away, like the first couple showings we get, the feedback is, one, we're priced way off, and two, they just had some more negative feedback to say about the house and about the renovations and about the work that we did. And for some context, for a house that I was going to do nothing to, I ended up doing flooring. I painted the cabinets. There was carpet on the stairs, and so I ripped the carpet off. We did all new hardwood treads on the stairs. There was all carpet upstairs. I ripped the carpet off, and we did LVP in the master bedroom and the hallway. And we did a lot of sprucing up, but I did not update the lighting fixtures. I didn't replace the cabinets. Like I said, I painted them. I did paint the entire house, but we did kind of a minor renovation. And based on, again, what the agent said we would get for the property, that's all we would need to do and whatnot. So we did those things, and after we got it listed, we started to get this negative feedback. And the agent was like, "Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure what they're talking about. I think the house looks great." And then he would go back to the house and he would take videos and he would tell me how everything looks great. And there seemed to be some misunderstanding from like what he was seeing and what the other agents were seeing. And so the first I chalked it up to those two agents just being picky. Then we started getting some more showings and we started getting more of the same feedback. And so his first gut instinct, he said, "Well, I think we need to start dropping the price." And I said, "Okay, well, that makes sense. We priced pretty aggressively." He actually had his broker walk the property in the very early stages of when we were renovating it. And the broker was like, "Oh yeah, if you do this, this, and this, then you can get, X price." But the broker never walked the property again after that time. And this was in the very, very early stages of when we started renovating it. And so he was like, "Well, I think my broker, I think she just said, she suggested for us to list the house at too high of a price. So let's start dropping it." And I had a ton of margin at where we listed it. I mean, it was going to be well over a 6-figure deal if we sold it where we listed it. So I was like, yeah, let's just drop the price. Maybe we need to drop it 10, 20 grand and we'll get more activity and we can get the house sold. Well, as we dropped the price, we got more showings, and all of the showings started to give this consistent feedback. And then we started to get offers. And the very first offer that I got was like 70 grand off of list price. And we're talking about a house that was listed in the mid 400s, right? So this was over 10% of a difference of list price. It was a pretty significant difference. And it wasn't like the house was a complete beater. The house could be lived in. We did a lot of upgrading. It wasn't modernized, but the house was definitely livable. And so the very first offer we got was well over 10% off a list price. And the agent was like, my agent was like, "Oh man, I don't know what he's seeing. I would just hold off. I don't think that he knows what he's talking about. I think you'll get every bit of X price for this house, and let's just keep going." So it's like, okay, well, man, that is really, really weird that we got an offer that far off, but let's just keep going. Well, we did more showings and we got another offer, and it was like 10 grand more, but still very low. And I was like, man, what in the world is happening? And so in a short time period of maybe about 2 weeks, we kept dropping the price a little bit. And then we finally got an offer that we went into contract on, and the offer was right around list price. We did end up dropping the price significantly based on all the feedback that we were getting. And I kind of chalked it up to like, wow, maybe my agent just and the broker just wasn't super tuned in or dialed in to where we should have listed this house. And the market has given us some feedback. All the offers are around the same price. And so it seems like that's the market price for it. And it was still going to be a good deal for me. So, real quick, as you guys know, I just recently started this podcast. If you could give it a rating with a quick tap of the thumb, that would mean the world to me. And even more importantly, it could help spread the word to a broader audience, which in turn could help change a life. Thank you so much, and let's get back to the show. We went into contract. And while we were in contract, they did an inspection, and then I had an inspection report. And so on the inspection report, I'm looking through all this stuff, and there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that's in there. And so I'm like, okay, well, there is some stuff here that would have been very easy for us to take care of. We probably should have just taken care of. Things that are difficult for me to see in like a video, especially if it's a fast frame video moving around, or difficult for me to see in the videos or the pictures rather. But it was very clear that when our buyers pulled up to the property and walked through the house, they weren't getting an experience that was particularly warm. And those are some of the basics, right? If you're flipping a house and you're not going to update it, at least take care of the things that are going to give the buyer a good feeling or a good experience when they're walking through a house. So we need a good first impression. And then we need, regardless of what we do inside the house, we need good, clean, quality work. So we got this inspection. And I'm like, okay, there's a lot of stuff. Like, we need to go fix all this stuff. So we got a list together. We're starting to fix all of it, regardless of whether or not the buyer was going to request for us to fix something. There was stuff on there that I just said, hey, that's not great. We need to just go ahead and fix it. Well, the buyer ended up backing out. And before we put it back on the market, I said, okay, this is very, very different than the story I was being told in the beginning. So I need a second set. I need somebody else to go walk through this property and tell me what's actually going on. And so I asked his broker, who saw the property previously in the very early stages of the renovation, just to go walk it again and let me know what she thinks. And I looked this broker up, and when I looked her up, she had tons of volume in this area. One of the top agents in this area, one of the top volume. It was very clear to me that she knew what she was doing in this area. So she walks the property, and she sends me this 8.5-minute video, which was great. She started outside, walked inside. 8.5-minute video just calling out all of these things. And the video was great. After I watched the video, number one, I knew I screwed up. Number two, I knew that she knew what she was doing, because she was calling out all of the things that had I walked the property and had I saw that these things were happening, I would have also called out and I would have made sure that they were done. And I knew I screwed up because I knew right then and there when I was watching that video that it took me way too long to get involved. And so we put a list together based on this video. I had one of the contractors, the person who I had interactions with, who I thought was the best out of everybody. I had him go back. He did a whole bunch of stuff. We put about another $12,000 into the property. We did stuff like changing out the light fixtures. And then we just did a little spruce up stuff that when you walk a house, you just get a feeling of, and like, oh yeah, we should probably do that. Oh, we should probably do that. Stuff that is a little bit harder to feel when I'm looking at a screen and trying to watch a video. So we put about another $12,000 into the house, and I ended up putting it back on the market when this work was done. And I put it back on the market $25,000 more expensive than where I was previously in contract and listed for, because we put some work back in. We thought since we did this work that it was going to present to the market a little bit better. So instantly we started getting showings. I think I had 6 or 7 showings within the first few days. And after 3 or 4 days, I think it was 3 days of having it on the market, we got 2 offers. Both offers, actually one offer was $5,000 less than list price, but had an escalation clause to $16,000 over list price. Escalation clause just means, hey, if somebody else offers more and you show us proof, I will beat that offer. But if nobody else offers more, then my offer is only the amount that I'm currently offering. So we had two offers. Both offers had these escalation clauses. One offer had no inspection contingency, which means they had no interest in doing an inspection, then asking us to fix things, which means they can't back out due to any reason that they see something in the home inspection. The only reason they can back out is if they don't qualify for their financing or if it doesn't appraise and we can't come to an agreement. So we get these two offers. I end up accepting one of them, and we're currently in contract well over list price. And it's such a good lesson of this is what I meant by know where the bodies are buried. In the beginning stage of this, I did not know this real estate agent particularly well, but when I got him on the phone, man, he said all the right things. Very friendly, very amicable, very gregarious. Like I built a good relationship with him very quickly. And based on what he was telling me and his experience that he had and the volume that he did, I kind of let him just take the wheel, right? And let him run with it. And I was not super involved. And the mistake that I won't ever make again is I always need to know where my bodies are buried in my business. And if there is something that just seems to be going really, really well, and that seems unusual that it's going really well, well, it's probably because there's bodies buried and I don't know about them. And so I think you might get some value out of that regardless of what you're doing, right? If you're running a business, or even if you're an employee and you're working over a certain department or a certain project and something seems to be going really, really well and you don't have this confirmed validation of why it's going so well, then there's probably bodies buried there. And so just a good lesson to me, no matter how good I feel about someone or how well a task is going, I need to go and I need to be involved, right? So something looking back on this, things that I could have done differently that would have exposed a need for me to be more involved more quickly is number one, I could have done more due diligence on this agent, right? When I first got him on the phone, I'm thinking one, he was a referral. Granted, my friend hadn't used him, but he met him at a real estate investment conference. I was like, boom, check. That's a good sign. My friend said that he had a really, really good conversation with him and that he did a lot of volume in that area. Boom, check. That's a good sign. Well, and then after I talked with him and he said he's been in the industry for over 2 decades, he flips his own houses. I'm like, man, this guy knows what he's doing, right? Not that I intentionally took a back seat, but I just kind of let him take the steering wheel. And what I found after I went and dug a little bit deeper on this agent is that he did do a lot of volume, but in this particular area, which was a higher median price house in this particular area, most of his volume was not in this area. It was in an area with a significantly lower median price house. And when I went and looked up his listings, he had done one listing in the past 12 months in this area. The rest of them were probably about 25 to 30 miles outside, just in these different parts of town. In those different parts of town, the median price for housing was half that. And so this was a different clientele, and he just wasn't used to the expectations of this particular clientele. And had I looked into that and had I been a little bit more involved from the beginning, those are things that I could have got ahead of, because I guarantee you, had I noticed that I would have brought the broker in from the beginning and said, hey, this agent doesn't have a ton of experience in this area. Everything he's saying seems great, but could you be a second set of eyes for me? I see that you have tons of volume in this area, and I would imagine that means that you know this clientele very, very well. So that's the first thing I could have done differently. The second thing is at the first sign of misalignment, I should have dug in deeper and I should have gotten involved immediately in that moment. And had I done that, then we could have gotten to the bottom of what was actually happening a little bit more quickly, which would have saved me some money, because the fact that I've held this property now for 4 to 5 months is a lot more expensive than if I sold it in 3 months like I thought I was going to. But when we first got that offer that was $70,000 less than list price, Had I dug in a little bit deeper and got more involved and not simply blamed it on the fact that the buying agent who offered on the house just had no idea what he was doing, then I would have probably identified some of these issues a little bit more quickly and could have then taken care of them. And then just bringing in that help sooner, right? Had I brought in the broker a little bit sooner, I would have had attention to these things more quickly. So that is my lesson. Know where your bodies are buried. If something seems to be going really, really well, it's probably because you just don't know where the bodies are buried and you need to go find them. So I hope you guys enjoyed that story. I hope you guys got some value out of it. Thank you so much for your attention. I love you guys. And until the next one, I'll see you. Peace.